сразу не успела начаться трансляция, уже 17 человек. Привет всем. И Олег самый первый оказался. А Влад второй, привет.
Две кукушки откуковали. Кто следующий?
Следующую мы кукушку отключаем. И будет всем хорошо. Сегодня будем смотреть готовое решение по мультиплееру. И либо что-то перетянем к себе из него, либо остановимся на нем. Кстати, кто смотрит регулярно, я думаю, должны заметить разницу в звуке. Если заметили разницу, поставьте плюсик в чат, чтобы я тоже заметил разницу. Наверное, никто не заметил. Так бывает. Сейчас я настрою все и запускаем процесс. Поехали потихоньку. Он тут на какую-то демочку юнитевскую наткнулся. Давайте глянем, что ли. Что это такое? Это вот что можно делать на Unity. К вопросу о том, что говорят, что Unity это движок для школьников.
Знаешь, то, что движок для школьников, не значит, что в нем нельзя сделать что-нибудь хорошее.
Так в том-то и дело.
Смысл в том, что это может сделать даже школьник.
Угу. Ну вот реально фотореалистичная картинка получается. Особенно если подгружается в нормальном качестве, то вообще прям вообще.
Tell me more about this place. You spent nearly 90 years there.
What? No. No, not there. The forest is just the lobby. That's where the entrance is.
Для VR как раз такая.
How do I remember all this? When did I make these memories? You need a brain to make memories.
Your brain is now remembering things that never happened to you. Or to it. An enormous amount of neuron connections were formed since you came back. Decades worth of memories.
There's one more thing you need to do.
Я на самом деле этот ролик видел уже, но я так и не понял его смысла. Да, красиво все, но...
Are you alright?
А если там какой-нибудь Адам или какой там был еще Black Smith перед этим презентационные ролики, там как мини-история, то вот в этом я так и не понял смысла.
Yes.
Но красиво, вот реально красиво вообще.
I damn near fainted. Even though he had told me about them.
Вот я в своей игре как раз хотел сделать нечто подобное, то есть без всякого худа, дополнительной информации и так далее.
I know.
Но как бы, люди не понимают такого. Им надо подсказки, чтобы было, где что там можно сделать и так далее. А как совместить, чтобы и интуитивно понятно, и без излишних там каких-то штук на экране, пока не очень понятно.
You're the only one who woke up, Karen. One out of tens of thousands. Why?
В общем, странный такой ролик, рекламный, хоть и красивый, да? Так, что там получается у нас по сценам, да? Давайте посмотрим, что там в лобби у нас есть, да? Аватар, Джинштин, Плеернейм, Старгейм. Ну, глянем, что по скриптам. Привет, дядя Лёва. Engine, Interpolite, Quaternium, Вектор 2, Вектор 3, Вектор 4, что это такое? Manager, Network Behavior, Network Manager, Network Object Factory. Привет, Владимир. Network Object Factory Base, Unity Object Maker. Так, ну давайте посмотрим с Network Behavior сначала. Ника, что нам получается нужно вообще в сетевом плане? Еще к тому, что...
Ты у меня спрашиваешь?
Да.
Это ты должен знать, что нам нужно там, а не я.
Ну, исходя из того, что мы написали тогда. Я же обозначал, что нам надо в промежутке так получить промежуточный результат. Сервер, к которому могут приконнектиться два разных игрока и синхронизироваться, то есть побегать просто по карте изначально.
Это все равно, что сказать, нам нужно сходить в магазин. Оно понятно, что нужно. А что нам нужно в этом магазине?
Нет, вот просто перед глазами есть готовое решение. Forge Networking. Бесплатный ASI. Соответственно, что там может быть не так? Ты не смотрел?
Я что-то знаю.
Я ж тебя скидывал ссылку.
И?
Я думал, ты посмотришь.
Зря думал.
Ну, посмотри тогда сейчас.
Дэн, мне это надо будет перечитывать весь код. Вот мне делать больше нечего, как разбираться в чужих работах.
самим писать, либо...
Вот именно, тут
для
либо-либо.
у кого-то. Просто меня беспокоит момент подводных камней. Что может быть не так? В принципе, у них в описании написано, что любое количество игроков, в отзывах у них написано, что для ММО это подходит решение. В принципе, можно попробовать. Для этого все-таки надо его разобрать.
Мне сказать шаблонную фразу.
Угу.
Барабан в руки.
Угу.
Или на шею. В зависимости от того, насколько тяжело.
Насколько большой барабан.
Ну да.
Мастер сервер, Джейсон. Вот здесь Джейсон как раз используется, что Миша говорил, что можно через него.
Да передавать-то можно как угодно.
Регистр дата. ID, name, port, player count. Player count это количество игроков, да? Max player. В смысле количество подключившихся игроков. Max players это сколько всего может подключиться. Comment type mod протокол. Yellow непонятно, use yellow тоже непонятно. И регистр это типа кнопочка. Себе. Мультиплеер. Меню, да? Лобби. Но лобби по определению подразумевает, что народ сначала собирается, потом запускается сервер и начинается игра.
Именно так.
Я думаю, мы можем на этой основе сейчас просто для теста и так в образовательных целях, например.
Сделать ЛМС.
Да, потому что у нас есть такая штука. Сейчас я продемонстрирую. Игровые режимы и техника. У нас вот предусмотрена арена классическая. И есть такая штука арена нова. Та же самая арена, одна жизнь на сессию, только сервер живет сутки или до последнего выжившего. Ничего не сужается. На карте есть города с жителями, можно с ними взаимодействовать, торговать, убивать. Но игроки никак не отличаются от NPC, любой может достать ствол или клинок и убить, если задеваешься. Проверить, кто перед тобой, можно квестом, диалогом. Если можно, значит непись, нет, значит игрок. Тогда кто первый среагирует, тот и прав. Хотя предмет за победу может быть и симулятором неписи, например, когда тебя проверяют квестом, он срабатывает и приглашает оппонента поторговать или к диалогу. Это на случай, если так просекут возможность проверки, кто есть кто. Побеждает тот, кто остался последним, либо если несколько по опыту и уровню. Это если по времени как-то жизнь сервера, а не до последнего выжившего. За простой на месте опыт откручивается назад, либо реально выползает зверюшка и жалит на количество хп. Это вот то, что мы реализовали как раз. А дальше уже, если не заморочился восстановлением хп, перс просто умирает, чтобы нельзя было в топ попасть, просто спрятавшись и оставшись последним. За первое место выдаются монеты, которые можно продать на бирже или потратить в игре, и крутой предмет, который поможет выживать в других играх, пока не убьют, и если его не потеряешь. Но все же не слишком имбалансный. Вот такой вот режим, в принципе, можно реализовать. А можно еще добавить сюда вот из классической арены, что, например, сужаться может шторм со всех сторон. Так. Либо, как вариант, прилив, из-за которого суши становится меньше, и все вынуждены собираться в центре карты. То есть никаких там непонятных барьеров и тому подобного. А можно вот реализовать таким образом. Просто поднимать уровень океана, и народ сам будет сбегаться оттуда. Так. Так. А Миши нету? Миши нету, да? Так, а здесь вообще ник ты себе ставил форш, нет?
Ответ отрицательный.
Ну поставь сейчас, давай попробуем законнектиться, посмотреть, что он мне все представляет.
Не хочу его скачивать.
Надо, Федя, надо.
И проще просто запустить два проекта.
Не проще, хочется как раз именно как надо проверить.
Ну подожди, сейчас юнит сперва надо запустить.
Угу. Так, MultiPlayer меню. Don't save, не трогаем. Так, ну это понятно, это здесь. Ага. Ну вот здесь есть такая штука. Так. Хост с портом написан у нас. Это подразумевает именно, что можно приконнектиться к этому хосту с портом, да?
Ну, по идее, да.
По локалке получается, да? То есть
да.
Это типа подсказки. А что это за кнопка? Host button. Текст. А сама по себе кнопка что делает? MultiPlayer меню хост. Непонятно. Сервер браузер. А, ну это просто список серверов, я так понимаю, да? То есть нам что сейчас нужно тогда запустить? Мы изначально запускаем что? Лобби. Блин, а где я вообще? Сейчас посмотрим презентажку. Фордж. А, кстати говоря, на ютубчике-то у нас. Так, first example moving up. Так, ну давайте посмотрим.
Hello, I'm Brent Ferris from the Privateers Studios, and now we're going to get into using Forge networking. And so I've opened up Unity, a blank Unity project, nothing was in it, dropped in the Forge networking package, and we're ready to go. So what I want to do is make a game so that we have our players that are able to see a cube. The server will own a cube, so the server will start, it'll create a cube, and then it can move the cube around. And then the clients that connect can see the cube moving around in space. So one of the very first things that
У нас просто даже в рамках ICO была в roadmap записана арена. То есть нам как бы все равно надо через нее двигаться. Так. Вот арена мод. Как раз второй квартал 2018 года. Все по плану.
What I like to do with this is open up the build settings and then go to the players.
Нет, если реально Forge нам подойдет, то в принципе мы его осваиваем, накидываем на него визуальную часть из альфы, потом прикручиваем блокчейн, может быть, не полную поддержку, не полную интеграцию, как оно изначально планировалось, потому что она нам здесь, в принципе, варенье-то без надобности, потому что это фактически сессионка будет. Пусть и длинная такая, но все равно. Вот. И, в принципе, там, не знаю, за 2-3 месяца, я думаю, можно осилить. А там уже посмотрим, как пойдет дальше.
Settings and turn on run in background. That's going to be one of the most important things you do. That hangs up a lot of people, so that's the first thing we're going to do here. Next, I'm going to find the multiplayer menu. If you probably don't see this on your screen.
Так, стоп. Сначала.
Hello, I'm Brent Ferris from the Beardman Studios. In this video, we're going to continue from the last one by just... Hello, I'm Brent Ferris from the Beardman Studios, and now we're going to get into using Forge networking. And so I've opened up Unity, a blank Unity project, nothing was in it, dropped in the Forge networking package, and we're ready to go. So what I want to do is make a game so that we have our players that are able to see a cube. The server will own a cube, so the server will start, it'll create a cube, and then it can move the cube around. And then the clients that connect can see the cube
Unity, свежий проект.
So one of the very first things that I like to do with this is open up the build settings and then go to the player settings and turn on run in background. That's going to be one of the most important things you do. That hangs up a lot of people, so that's the first thing we're going to do here. Next, I'm going to find the multiplayer menu. If you...
Стоп, это именно мультиплеер, да? Это... Вот эта штука.
You probably don't see this on your screen, this little menu thing here in the game view. If you go and look for multiplayer menu, you'll find it here. Just open it up. And that is actually going to be our first scene that we put up. So now we've gotten all this setup work out of the way and we're ready to plan out our network code, create our network code, and see our cube moving around.
Кстати, Ник, вот есть такой момент. Помнишь, в ЛМС была еще такая штука, не знаю, на самом деле, они кому-то выплатили призы или нет. Ну, типа, сезона, там, то есть, занимаешь определенные места, то есть, топ там формируется.
Я понял, дальше.
Фактически, там же все достаточно просто, то есть, формируется топ, просто по очкам набранным за выживание, да, и потом уже просто по результатам топа, ну, как я себе это представляю, они связываются, либо игроки связываются с ними, соответственно, победители должны получить приз, правильно? Или как это может быть?
Это может быть по-разному.
Ну, понятно, что может быть по-разному. Но я думаю, они не сильно заморачивались. Конечно, не факт, что они вообще кому-то что-то выплатили. Там в свое время, конечно, народу нехило играло в надежде получить эти 10 тысяч баксов, которые там были объявлены призовыми. Но сам факт, что как бы вот простейший вариант — это именно просто формирование топа средствами игры с учетом статистики, и потом уже просто непосредственно прямая связь с игроками, победителями, и уже начисление, так сказать, приза. Правильно ведь?
Нет.
Что нет? Что не так?
Топ формируется не игрой.
А чем?
Данные игроков записываются в базу данных. Соответственно, топ формируется из базы.
Не, ну понятно, ну средствами игры, то есть получается каждый матч формирует нам определенную статистику, которая записывается в базу, плюсуется, соответственно, по логину.
Нет.
А что нет?
В базу тупо записываются очки, а все остальное выводится из базы.
В смысле? Нет, в базу записывается как раз полная, наверное, информация.
Тупо игрок и сколько у него очков.
Ну в принципе да, то есть... Да, согласен. То есть статистика на каждую конкретную игру, которую игрок может посмотреть после завершения игры, Дальше, соответственно, он закрывает экранчик, все, статистика уже ему недоступна по этой игре. И
Естественно, где-то
записываются,
головное.
да, и записываются просто данные по количеству очков, плюсуются просто к его логину в таблице.
Именно так.
Ага. Ну, в принципе, здесь я ничего технически такого нерешаемого не вижу на нашем даже этапе.
Да, это самое
То есть
простое.
мы формируем таблицу победителей, скажем так, по жизни. Например, мы можем запустить сезон, сформировать по его итогам табличку и потом выплатить просто приз в виде монеток, либо дополнительно еще каких-то предметов, которые можно будет использовать уже в следующем сезоне, к примеру.
Оно так и делается.
Ага. Ну, в принципе, все достаточно понятно. Привет, Виталий. Океан систем проблема. Префаба океана, но вблизи нет отображения воды. Да, там есть такая проблема, но сейчас я не открою, это у меня в другом проекте. Там надо в настройках поковыряться непосредственно самого океана. То есть кликаешь на воду, там настройки, куча скриптов. Так, навскидку я могу только сказать, что это настройка из двух составляющих, из двух вариантов. Может быть, сейчас, если я найду запись, давай посмотрим. Тебе скажу, где это, где ковырять. В общем, там надо выбрать просто другую поверхность воды. Тогда не будет прозрачная.
Я скажу еще лучше.
Чё?
Это океан систем не для новой Unity, поэтому там и есть эти проблемы.
Не, ну она делалась, да, там на старой, вообще на третьей, по-моему, Unity еще. Или четвертой. Так. Сета. Где же сета? Вот он. Так. Всё сделал.
Действительно,
Сам
хрена
по
я
себе
от тебя
это
тут.
несложный. Что там? Чего?
Зачем у меня-то этот форш?
А мы сейчас
Ты
попробуем.
тупо делаешь билд, запускаешь билд как сервер и запускаешь Unity.
Я понимаю. Я хочу просто законнектиться на удаленный IP, а не на свой локальный.
А разницы никакой.
Ну, разница все же есть.
Нет, только в доступности удаленного адреса.
Возможно. Ну ладно, сейчас будем разбираться. Так, где тут? Сейчас человеку подскажем. В общем, вот, как бы на воду кликаешь, объект океан транспарент квея. И вот тут куча скриптов, всего этого добра. И уже здесь смотришь. Вот, скорее всего, depths mod. Вот это вот underwater script. Depths mod, use океан depths pass. Либо где-то рядом. Ну, в общем, тебе надо просто поковырять в настройках вот этих скриптов. Это именно один из вариантов с выпадающим списком. И насколько я помню, так как это давно писалось все, там два варианта всего. То есть ты там выбираешь просто правильный вариант, и у тебя вода становится нормальной. В общем, так. Давайте дальше пока что. Так.
So in Forge Networking Remastered, we have set up this thing called the Network Contract Wizard, which we just call NCW. If you're inside of the Discord chat and you see NCW, that's what it is, the Network Contract Wizard. What this thing does is it actually allows us to blueprint our networking. So if you go up to Window, Forge Networking, Network Contract Wizard, or Control G, you'll get this nice little nifty Network Contract Wizard. There's a few things already in here. We can go
Чего? Контракт Wizard? Действительно, Network Contract Wizard.
Networking, Network Contract Wizard, or Control G, you'll get this nice little nifty Network Contract Wizard.
Чат менеджер, KubeForge. Это, видимо, плеер, да? Example Proximity Player Network Object, Network Camera, Network Object. Так, это где это?
You'll get Forge Networking.
RUB Нет. Посмотрим. Network Contract Wizard. Изменился с тех пор немножко. Но вот есть ресурс контроль. Нет, это именно вопрос к ассету. Сейчас. Так, что он там дальше нам рассказывает?
Network Contract Wizard or Control G, you'll get this nice little nifty Network Contract Wizard. There's a few things already in here. We can go ahead and ignore those because those are just some samples that we don't really care about. You can just leave those in for now and just ignore them. So to start, I'm going to think about my scene. So I'm going to put this off to the side for now. I'm going to open up a new Unity scene here, and I'm just going to save it out to the assets folder and just call it move cube. Up here in the assets folder, move cube. So I have my scene. Now I want a cube in here. I want this cube that can be moved around by the server. So I'm going to create a cube at 0, 0, 0. That's nice and centered in the camera here and ready to go with our networking. Now we need to think about our networking. What is this cube doing? This cube is going to be moving in space. It's going to be moving up on the Y and then across on the X. So it's going to be moving around in 3D space. So the one thing that we need to send across the network is the position. The position is important for us to send, otherwise how can everyone see this thing moving and where it's at in the world? We don't really have anything else. We're not rotating the cube or doing anything else. So the only thing we need to worry about in this is the position. So I'm going to hit create up here in the top right. This will create a new network object. I'm going to call it move cube. That's going to be our network object name. Now there are two things here. There's an add field and an add RP.
Это именно сетевой объект создается.
RPC. The field is the one we're going to be working with. The RPC we'll work with later. We'll ignore this checkbox. Just let's all focus only on this fields section. A field is an unreliable value. Now you may think, well, why would I ever use an unreliable value on the network? That seems crazy. Well, let's think about it this way. If this cube is over here moving like crazy all over the place, constantly updating, then it's not so important that every single position be sent across the network perfectly reliably. If some of those positions get dropped since I'm moving it so much, it doesn't matter that we've dropped some of those positions across the network. Now that is normally what you want to do, because reliable network messages are slower because it has to make sure it got there in order. With these unreliable messages, they just shoot as fast as possible, fire and forget, so they're extremely fast. So the position is a vector 3. You saw me click on this enum, go to the drop down to vector 3. We have all sorts of different data types that we can use in here.
Vector 3 это в
Let's just
смысле
focus on what
позиция.
we need for this particular instance here, and let's go to the vector 3 because this is going to be the position. So let's type in position into this box.
Ну да, он создает объект с именем moveCube, который содержит следующие поля.
I can click that button to turn it on. Now you see it's lit up and 0.15. We'll go over what this is later. For right now, for most purposes, this is going to be pretty smooth. It basically smooths out the movement. If we don't have interpolation on, you'll kind of see this box move really staggered like this. And the reason for that is because not every single position is sent at every frame. It's actually sent at an interval. So let's say every half a second we send a position. So if this is moving like this, you can imagine we're only sending the half second positions in between that. So interpolation makes that nice and smooth for the viewer. So this is all we need, is we just needed the position for this cube. So I'm going to get save and compile. So when we save and compile, we see that we now have our move cube network object right here. If we click on that, we can
Здесь вот тест network, а там уже именно то, что он создал.
See our stuff here. We got some classic Unity UI errors. We'll clean that up. So whenever we click on that, you can see we can go in here and we can edit it if we need to. So let's just clear that out, and now we're back on our fresh start. We've generated our code. You can actually find the code that was generated inside of the Bearded Man Studios Inc. folder, inside of the generated folder of that, and inside of the user generated folder of that. So you see here's a move cube network object. Here's a move cube behavior. So you can see it generated two classes. One is the network.
Это получается скрипты уже непосредственно персонажа, да? Network Object, сетевой скрипт и Behavior. Это как бы основной, видимо, я так понимаю, да? Нет.
Чего?
Ну вот эти два скрипта, про которые он говорит сейчас. Один сетевой, один основной скрипт персонажа.
Он сейчас вообще говорит про генератора, а не про это.
Object, and one is a behavior. The behavior is the one we care about in this setup. So let's go back up to the root assets folder. Let's right click, create a C# script called move cube. And we're going to open this up in the Visual Studio or whatever editor that you use. What we want to do is, you notice there was a move cube behavior. We actually want to use that. So we'll just copy move cube and we'll paste it there and say move cube behavior. I'm going to hit Control period to bring up this hot box and include this using statement. So the generated code, as you might see now, is inside of a namespace Bearded Man Studios Forge networking generated. So you're going to have to include this namespace in order for you to derive from that behavior that was created. Now, we just want to do a very simple thing. We want to press the WASD or the arrow keys to move this cube around, and we want those positions sent across the network. So let's think about the server code only right now. So we'll probably have an update in here, and inside of our update we're going to move the cube around. We're going to say if input, or actually let's just say transform.position plus equals new vector 3.
Сейчас,
and
да.
we're going to pass in our fancy x position. So we're going to say input.getAxis horizontal. We're going to move on the y with the vertical axis, so input.getAxis vertical. And we're not going to move it all on the z, so we'll just put 0 there for the z. So we can go ahead and jump over to Unity and confirm that this moves our cube the way we expect it to. I'm going to just teleport over there real quick. So inside of Unity, what I need to do is add my script, move cube, do my cube, and we are ready to hit play and see what happens. So here we are playing. If I press the W, S, A, and D's, you can see I can move this cube around. It's a little bit fast. I'll probably slow it down with time.delta time really quick so that it kind of fits our example a little better. So times time delta time, and that'll move it a lot slower. Go back over. It's crawling. We'll do times 5.0. Check that one. There we go. That's good enough. It's nice and smooth. So we've confirmed that our input keys have moved our cube around. Now we need to actually send that data across the network so that the clients can see it. So this is server code. We know that for a fact because the server is the one that's going to be controlling this cube, because the cube is inside the scene. When the network loads, the server automatically owns it. So what we're going to do here is remember that fancy position we made inside of the NCW. Let me just go over here and open it up here, Network Contract Wizard. We have our position inside of our fields. So remember that we can actually access that since we derived from move cube behavior, we have access to what's called a network object. This network object, if you hover over it, you'll see here that it says move cube network object. That's the code that was generated for this network object. If we put a dot position, you'll notice that we have a position here, and I can assign this position to the transform position. So I have moved the position using the input keys, and then I have assigned the position to the network object position. This is the data that gets sent across the network. Forge automatically detects that you have assigned this property, and it does all the magic under the hood and sends it over the network. So now that we have the server code, we need to think about the client code. How does the client know that the server has moved or updated its position? How does this client assign its transformed position? So what we're going to do is we're going to say if network object dot is server, and what we want to do is say not is server. So if we are not the server, we're going to exit this update, but before we exit the update, we're going to say transform.position is equal to network object dot position. So you may wonder, how is this madness even operating? So we assign this on the server, and then somehow the client magically works? Well, the answer is pretty simple from what we're looking at here. We're assigning the network object position on the server. The server then does tons of magic to send that data over the network, and then the client actually gets that value in its network object.position. So this position here is the position from the server. So the server assigns that position. Client automatically has that value updated here in its own network object. So as the client, if I assign my position to what was sent across the network, I'm effectively moving it to where it is on the server. So let's do a complete test of this. Let's save our code. Let's jump back over to Unity. First things first, let's clear out these Unity UI error stuff, and let's open up the build settings. Now we want to add our scene, the move cube scene, as the second scene, because the multiplayer menu, when you hit host or when you hit connect, it automatically goes to the next scene, which is going to be the move cube scene in this scenario, which is what we want. So I'm going to finish that. I'm going to save my project. I'm going to build this out real quick, and I'll be right back. I'm going to go ahead and go to this and select windowed 800 by 600, and I'm just going to display it here on my display one, and it's going to start playing. So the first thing I need to do in the editor is go over to the multiplayer menu, save that scene, play here. So I'm playing here and I'm playing here. What we're going to do is we're going to make the instance here the server, and the Unity editor the client. So I'm going to hit host over here on the server. I'm going to allow access to the network for this, and now I'm going to come over here and hit connect. You can see the cube is right here, and now we're going to move it. So now you can see that the cube is moving on the client here in the editor, and here on the server with this build. So that's it for our basic first getting started tutorial. I know this one was a little bit long. There's a lot to go over. We're going to reiterate over those for our next tutorials. But here you go. You got your first start, a moving cube on a client and a server. And I can actually run multiple instances of the clients.
Ну, это получается,
we'll
что
so I'm going to do that real quick.
как бы один
Here,
получается сервер,
connect on all three.
остальные к нему
Go back to my server, which is this one, and move the cube around. You'll see that it moves in all of the clients.
Или как?
Именно так.
So that's it for this tutorial. Please let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. And first, from the Beardman Studios, in this video, we're going to continue from the last one by just modifying a network contract. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up the NCW. So let's go over to the NCW. And we're going to do our move cube network object. Now what I want to do is I actually want to make this cube rotate just constantly and have that rotation sent across the network to everyone else. So I'm going to add field, rotation, select quaternion from the drop down and interpolate that. I'm going to save and compile. And then I'm going to jump over and open up the move cube again. In here, I'm just going to do transform.rotate. It wants our axis, so we're just going to do vector3.up. And we're going to do time.delta time times 90 degrees. So we're just going to rotate 90 degrees a second, and we're going to go to network object.rotation, which we have now, is equal to transform.rotation. So we're assigning the rotation for the network on the server to the current transform rotation, which means on the client, we're going to want to do transform.rotation is equal to network object.rotation, and that's going to be pulled back. So I'm just going to put a comment here. This is client code. This is server code. Cool. Just a little cleanup there.
Но вот он не
Now,
разделяет
all we need to do
клиентский
is build this
сервер.
out, run it again, and check it out. So
Естественно,
I'm
ему
gonna
это
go to my multiplayer
нахрен не надо для
menu. Just as a
примера.
refresher, I have the multiplayer menu first, move cube second, run in background is on. Now I'm just going to build and run. So now that it's built, I'm going to play, jump over here, press play in the editor, wait for this guy to launch up. I'm going to host. There's my rotating moving cube. Go over here and press connect. So there we are. And now we see the rotation and the cube moving. So just like that, we're able to go and edit a network contract. Super easy, modify it, and get it up and running inside of our game. If you have any questions, please let me know. In the next one, we're going to go over a remote procedure call. Hello, I'm Brent Ferris from the Birdman Studios, and in this video we're going to go over remote procedure calls, often known as
Вот как набирается
RPCs.
миллионы
So what a remote
просмотров.
procedure call is basically when you call a
Видосики по
function
2
across a
минуты
network. So
запилил.
I say jump, and then the client jumps. And you can think of it
Тебе
that way.
мешает сделать то же самое.
So what we want to do here
Формат
is we
не
want
тот.
to load up the player setting or the build settings, go to the player settings, check on to run in background because that's the first thing we should always do. I am inside of a brand new Unity project with Forge imported into it. Then I'm going to look for the multiplayer menu and make that the first scene. Now that I have all this setup stuff done, I'm going to create a new scene. And let's create a sphere, actually. I want a sphere this time. So we're going to create a sphere, and we're going to save this scene as sphere.
Кто тут пришел?
So now that we have our sphere and we have our scene, we want to create our network object. So we're going to open up the Forge Network Contract Wizard. You can go to Window, Forge Networking, Network Contract Wizard. We're going to create a new thing, and we're going to call it Guy. So just GUI, Guy. We're going to ignore fields. We have another video on that if you care to watch that. And we're going to go straight over here to the remote procedure calls, and we're going to add an RPC. We're going to give it a friendly name. We're going to say move up is going to be our friendly name. And it's not going to have any arguments. We're going to make this as simple as possible. So this arguments drop down, nothing, nada, just by itself. We have our guy and our move up as our remove procedure call. I'm going to hit save and compile. And that's going to generate our code. Go ahead and jump over to the other tutorial to see where that generated code is. But right now we're going to create a new C# script called Guy. Same name that we put into the network contract wizard to keep it simple. I'm going to put Guy onto the sphere and then open up that code. So here, instead of the code, we're going to call it, we're going to derive from Guy behavior. And that is inside of the generated namespace, so we're going to add that.
Супер, привет. А что с ней не так? Одиночную выпустили,
Notice
как
right
мы
off the bat, we have a
планировали.
red squiggly under Guy,
В
and that
виде
says
демо-версии.
Guy does not implement it does not implement inherited abstract member Guy behavior move update move up, which is the RPC we created if you remember. What we want to do is right click on this and
Одиночная
I don't know the right
доступна
click
к
thing. We're just going to hit
скачиванию
control
в
period.
личном
We're going to say
кабинете на
implement
сайте.
abstract method. If you don't have that fancy hotkey, if you're using a regular old text
Для
editor,
того,
all
чтобы
you have to
поиграть
do
в одиночную
is
версию, нужно иметь на своем кошельке 100 монеток нашей криптовалюты. И для регистрации на сайте надо иметь этот кошелек, потому что не пропустит регистрации без него. Регистрируешься, и там прямо в личном кабинете ссылки на Windows и на Linux версии.
write this code in here and make sure that you're using all these using statements up here. Going to get rid of that not implemented exception, and what we're going to do is just move the cube up. So transform.position plus equals vector3.up. That's it. We're just going to move it up when it gets this RPC. So now that we have that, we're going to jump back to Unity. Oh, before we do that, we have to actually call this RPC. That would be a great idea, huh? So we're going to do private void update. And inside of here, we're going to say if input get key down. We're going to be very simple. Input or key code dot space. So if we press the space bar, we want to move up. So in order to do that, we access our network object, which is a member of the guy behavior. So network object, and we're going to do send RPC. Inside of the send RPC, we need to call the move up. And in the generated code, it actually creates a constant variable we can use. So put your caps lock on and type in RPC underscore, and you'll see move up as an option, and that's the one we're going to select. And then we're going to say receivers.all. We're going to just send it to everybody, and there are no arguments. We're not passing anything to it. That's it. We're done. Now we can head back to Unity and test out our stuff. So first, I'm going to open up the build settings, add in our open scene, which is the sphere, go back to the multiplayer menu to start our server, and then build our game. Now that we have it built, I'm going to play here as the server, play over here as the client. So let's jump back to our instance. No, don't minimize. And we're going to hit host. Now we're hosting with the sphere, and we're going to come over to the editor, hit connect. We're connected, and there's the sphere.
Что-то я так и не понял назначение этой кнопки host. Это, то есть он нажимает для того, чтобы выбрать, какой из клиентов будет хостом, или что?
Кнопочку host он нажимает, чтобы сделать хост. Кнопочку connect, чтобы подключиться. Что-то непонятного.
Ну, просто не очень интуитивно.
I'm going to press spacebar. There we go. It's moving up. Now it's off the screen. So, one thing I do want to point out from this is that the RPC is all as the receivers. And we're going to see where this could be a problem. I'm going to just reopen that build. I have the build back up. I'm going to host. And I'm going to hit play here, but I'm not going to connect. I'm going to press spacebar 3 times here. Come over here and connect. Notice the sphere is not in the same location. This is because we're not replicating the position. If you'd like to know how to do that, check out the other tutorial. But all we're doing is whenever we press spacebar, it sends an RPC saying, move up. If a client is not connected when that RPC is sent, it does not execute that behavior when it connects because it was sent when it wasn't connected. However, now that it is connected, I can hit spacebar and it will move up on each RPC call. So if you want to combine the position and the RPC call, you could do that. Of course, you don't really need to do that as a practical thing because the position should be updated with the network object. However, there is another way called a buffered RPC, which we're going to talk about in the next video. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, hello, I'm Brent Ferris from the Breederman Studios, and welcome to the shortest tutorial you'll ever watch in your life. So we're continuing from the last tutorial, which we had this thing where whenever we press spacebar, the RPC sent, but if the client wasn't connected, it didn't actually get it. So in this one, we're going to show you buffered RPCs. What a buffered RPC is the server holds on to that RPC call, and then whenever someone joins, it sends it out. So if we buffer 4 or 5 or 6 RPC calls, they all get piled up, and whenever someone connects, it just sends all of those RPCs in order to that client, and the client can execute it. So to do that, we change the receivers from receivers.all to receivers.all buffered. You'll notice that receivers does have a lot of other options in here that you can select from. You can explore those. We'll explore those in later videos, but for now, we're going to use all buffered. We're going to save this, jump back to Unity, make our build the same way we did in the last video, and we'll see what happens. So here we are. We're going to do the same exact setup as last time. I'm going to hit play in the editor, but I'm not going to connect. And then over here, I'm going to host. I'm going to press spacebar 3 times. 1, 2, 3. If you remember last time when I connected, it didn't get those 3. In fact, I'm going to do 2 more just to make it a little higher. Now I'm going to connect, and you'll notice that it is all the way up there this time, and that's because all of those RPCs that we have pressed spacebar before to send, they got queued up, and when the client connected, it sent all of them in order to the client, and now it's in the same position because it actually executed all of those RPC calls really quickly, as you noticed. So that's it for the buffered RPC tutorial. That's basically what buffered RPCs are. Go into the docs and check out how you can clear out RPCs or replace them. There's all kinds of fancy stuff you can do in there that we can't really get into the nitty-gritty into this video because it would just go beyond the scope. So thanks for watching and how we can put them together to do interesting things. So I will. Hello, I'm Brent Ferris from the Breederman Studios, and in this video I lied about in the last video saying that I was going to combine the two. I'm probably going to do that in a future video, but for this video I found it more important that I show you how to actually pass arguments into an RPC call because that just makes sense. We didn't even see how to pass arguments. So what I'm going to do is I'm working off of my previous one with the guy and the sphere and all that, so I'm going to open up the guy network object. I'm going to add in a new RPC here, and it's going to have a few arguments, but first we'll name it do something. There we go, and we're going to add in 1 argument by hitting this green plus sign, and that first argument is going to be a string, and we'll just say name. This is actually useless, so you can type whatever you want in here. This is just for you to be able to come back and when you open up the NCW know what this argument is actually for. So I'm going to open up another one, and I'm going to pass in vector 3. I'm going to call it position, and we'll just have those 2 arguments because we don't need to have a whole bunch. I mean, we'll have one more. We'll have count. We'll make that an int. All right, so we have 3 arguments: a string, which is a name; vector 3, which is a position; and an integer, or a count, which is an integer. And that's inside of our do something. So I'm going to save and compile. And one of the first things you're going to see when I compile is I'm going to get an error saying the guide does not implement abstract member. Well, we added a new RPC call, which means that since I'm not implementing it, it's not going to work. So I'm going to go ahead and implement it. So if you remember, we had a string first, then we had a vector 3, and then we had an integer. So I'm going to create a private int count, assign it to 0 here, or we can make this public just to prove a point. And we're going to do a public string sent name, and we're going to do a public, we're just going to assign the position. We're not going to make another field for that. So we're going to do string name is equal to args.getNext string. Now what this does is it actually gets the next argument that's in the queue. So when you put arguments in, they come out in the order that they were put in. So if you put a string in first, as we saw inside of the NCW, we go over here and open it up. Since we have, oh, let me save my script first real quick, Steve. Go back to Unity to get rid of that error. So if we open it up, we check out do something, we have string vector 3 int. That is the order that we need to pull them out in. So I do a string vector 3 pos equals args.getNext vector 3 and int counter equals args.getNext. So string vector 3 int, we're pulling them in the same order that we're going to be sending them in. Now you can do some other fancy stuff like you can call get at and then pass in an integer, like 1 would get you position, but that's too complicated for what we're trying to do here. We're going to keep it simple. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to debug.log hello plus name. So we're going to say hello name, and next we're going to assign the name sent name equal to name. We're going to assign the count equal to the counter that was received, and we're going to set the transform.position equal to the position we pulled out, which is just pause. Now that we've set up this do something, we need to call it just like we did with this spacebar. We'll just say if input.get key down key code. Let's use, I don't know, B for cool. So we're going to call it the same way that we called this other one. Network object send RPC. We're going to pass in RPC underscore do something. That's the name of it. We're going to do receivers.all. We don't want this to be buffered. We're just going to send it whenever the person comes in. And next, we're going to pass in each of the arguments. We'll keep this simple. The first argument I'm going to pass in is forge, which is a string. It's going to be the first argument, string. The next argument that I'm going to pass in is going to be the position. And we can make this some random position if we want. So I'm going to make a random position. A vector 3, rand pos equals new vector 3. And we're just going to put in some random numbers in here. Actually, let me just do random dot. I need to use Unity engine. I'm going to have an ambiguous call between the Unity engine and system, so I need to do Unity engine dot random dot value. In fact, I can get rid of this system namespace. It's not being used. There we go. Random value, random dot value, and random dot value. And of course, we can just multiply each one of these by, let's say, 5 units, just so it's in some random position here. And I'm going to pass that rand pos as the second argument. So the first argument is a string, second argument is vector 3, the third argument is going to be an integer, which I'm just going to make plus count. So it increments and then sends. Now, also what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so only the server can send this. So if input, not input, if network object is server, return. So if it's not the server, we're going to return. So only the server can press this. And yes, that does mean that the client could press spacebar and it would send and cause the sphere to go up. So that was a lot of stuff. A quick recap. We called send RPC with do something, receivers all. The first argument is a string. Second argument is a vector 3. third argument is an integer. When that is received, we pull out the string, vector3 and integer. We log out the name, we assign the name, we assign the count, and we assign the position to the position that was sent. Since the server is sending this, the server is actually going to call this RPC as well. So you'll notice this because when we press spacebar, this random pause will be assigned to the server as well. So when you use receivers all, server will call it on itself, as we noticed on the last example when we press spacebar to go up. Let's jump over, build it, test it out. Okay, I have my build. I'm going to start up my client. I'm going to host my server, join with my client. Now on here, I'm going to select the sphere just so that I can see our properties. Notice we have sent name and count here. Come back here, I'm going to press spacebar, look, it moves. I'm going to press B. So when I press B, notice that it moved to that random location. Let me turn on my logging here. You see it says hello Forge with exclamation points. Sent name got assigned to Forge and count is 1. If I press B a bunch of times, it'll move in random space. It'll keep logging and that counter will go up. Now what you will notice is that this counter is going up by 1 because we're just incrementing by 1. String is not changing because we're sending the same string. That's also why I went ahead and made it log here so that you can see that it's actually sending each time. So that's it for sending the various data types across an RPC. Please let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. We may not do the whole combining fields and RPCs in the next video because frankly you can kind of just take the 2 videos that you have for fields and RPCs, just put them together and voila. So we may go into explaining some of the other features of Forge, probably starting with the main menu to see how we're hosting and how we're connecting, and then moving on to some of the samples that are the sample code that is provided as an example for you to start. So we'll see you in the next videos. Thanks for watching, and please ask any questions if you have them.
Так, и чё? Что мы тут получили?
Hello, my name is Brett from Bearded Man Studios, and today I'll be going over Forge Networking Mechanism. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of what we're doing. This is a very simplistic project to just showcase how to get animation syncing over either from Legacy or from Mechanism. And I made 2 scripts that will allow you to do so. Right here, animation character, animation controller. And I will give you this scene as well as including Ethan in it. I cannot include the other ones because they're part of the assets that you can buy off the asset store. So if you have any other assets, you're free to shove them in here and test them out as you want. I'll also say that this is a very basic animation tutorial and there will be more advanced ones to come, but for now this will just showcase how to simply get your characters syncing and having the correct animation play and just going about how to sync Mechanism and Legacy however you want, and the easiest way to do it as well as the most efficient way to do it. I will say that excuse me, I will say that if you want to have the animations play at the exact frame as the server or as every other client should have it, you'd want to make sure to sync the animation timestamp that it played as well as the difference that the round trip from the server to the client. And with that information you'll be able to set that animation to the correct frame that it should be at that time. I'm not going to do that in this video, but I'm just explaining that's how you would go about it to have them play at the exact time or the correct time. So that being said, I'm using 16.8 of Forge Networking, which is the latest for this video right now. My networked objects are the boss, the Reaper, Tyra, and Ethan. Ethan is the only legacy animation, and the other, or sorry, Ethan is the only one that's in Mechanism. The other ones are legacy. And let's let me show you a quick overview of Ethan. He has 5 animations, as you can see here. And the way I set it up is I have an empty state. You just create state empty. I can call this whatever, starter. And what it does is it goes to the entry to the starter, and the starter will has exit time set to false, which will go to the correct animation, and the correct animation will fully play out thanks to having this checked, and then it will go straight to exit and just reloop itself. I kept the original animations over here, but we're not using those. And the way I'm syncing it is simply just having a condition of current animation equal to whatever value. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Obviously it's over here 2 as an int. And then in code, I have the mechanim state current animation. You can change this to whatever name you want. Just make sure that you match it in the mechanim on top of the controller. And I have an animation controller which just holds all the other animation or animator objects. The way that I'm syncing this, I have a simple class that just acts as a holder, which will be used in more advanced tutorials, but for now just consider it another animation clip. I have a Boolean check to see if it's a legacy animation or not, and if it is, then it'll grab it, it'll just pull it off the animation itself without you having to do anything. But if it's not a legacy, and it is a mechanim, you would have to make sure that you specify how many animations there are. Right now I have 5 right here, and it's just using that variable and increasing it by 1. I have the current animation clip. This is a variable that I'm going to update and synchronize it to the other clients. It's going to call this function whenever it does sync over properly. This is just a way for me to get the current animation that I'm at. On my wake, I just grab the components. If it's a legacy, I grab it from the animation state from the controller. Otherwise, I'm just adding a fake clip into it. You don't really need to do this because you can just create a max and just use the max as a way to update your iterator. But for ease of purposes in the future tutorials, I'm going to leave it the way it is now, just adding a fake clip. I have 3 functions, play current animation, play next, and play previous. Play current is what's getting synchronized over, as well as itself calling this function to play the animation. Play next just increments it. If it goes past the animation length, it just resets it to 0. And previous, same thing, except it resets it to the high. And then my controller is a simple way for me to go through all the animations on each character and update it. And I only do this if it's the server. Otherwise, if it's not the server, I don't display this information because only the server is allowed to control these objects. You're free to make them controlled by the user himself or putting it on the actual character and synchronizing it over if it's the owner of that object. You can go about it how you please. But for purposes of this tutorial, I'm just going to make it so the server is always going to be the one in control of the animation. So that is it. I'm going to build this out and make sure that your Forge Networking Quick Start menu has the proper scene in it. Right now I just have an animation scene. It's in here. It's all good. So I'm just going to hit build and run. Take its sweet time. Hit play. I'm going to then grab Unity, move it over a nudge, put it over here, grab this, put it over here. I'm going to make this the editor as the host, and I'm just going to leave it the way it is right now. I'm going to join in as a client over here. Now, as I said, you'll see these a little off on the animations, but it's not something I'm concerned about right now. As I explained in the beginning, if you want to sync the animation at exactly the right frame, you would have to send that information over with it. So as you can see, I don't have the buttons to change the animations of these characters, so this is definitely the client. This is the server, so I'm going to change this guy's animation, which is the boss one legacy. I'm going to do a 2-hit combo, or let's go to Angry Roar. That's good enough. Let's move to the next character. This is the Reaper. I'm going to cast a spell. That's good. Let's go to Death. Death is dying of death. Go forward, backwards, left, get hit. So you're just going to constantly get hit. And then I'm going to move on to Tyra. She only has 2 animations right now, which is a sprint test and pose. Oops, pose. Oh, stop someplace. Play. And then I'm going to go to next character, Ethan, which is our mechanim. I don't have obviously a mechanim name here, but you're free to do so however you want to display any debugging information as you will. But it's really just an iterator that's increasing over time. So I'm going to hit next, which would go into the run, hit next, and that should go in the walk, and etc. etc. Just going through each animation state that he has. And that is pretty much it. You have syncing animations all networked, this being the client, this being the server in control of all the animations. So I hope this was very informative. I will be making more tutorials in the future, and I will also include this Forge Networking mini tutorial on our website and pushing this video onto YouTube so that you're free to look at it and give any feedback that you will. So thanks for watching, and look forward to seeing you guys do all your animations, and please do send in feedback and comments and any bugs or issues that you're having, or if there's something that we're not describing well enough for you, or how you might want us to go over a particular edge case for your animations, feel free to leave it in the comments below. So thanks again.
Hello, I'm Brent Ferris from the Privateers Studios. I'm here to show you the character controller that is a part of the sample assets beta for Unity 4.6. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to take Forge Networking, we're going to drop it in, which I've already done, and we're going to see the character moving around inside of the scene across the network or across 2 instances of Unity. So just go ahead, if you're going to want to follow along, go ahead and download this asset, import it. I would suggest importing it into a new project because it is an entire project apparently, and it will overwrite settings. So import this into a completely new project and we'll get started. So I have it already imported here. And I already have Forge dropped in, so we don't have to wait around for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to the canvas, and down here you're probably going to see a different scene name for this menu is going to load. And I probably should tell you what the menu scene is. If you search for menu, you'll find Forge Quick Start menu. If you double click that, it'll open up a scene that looks like this. And when you select the canvas, you can scroll down to the Start Game Script, and down here you'll see scene name, and it's probably going to be a different name. So set it to game as a capital G, a lowercase a-m-e, and that's how we're going to be setting up this project. So I'm going to start up a new scene, Control N, and I'm going to clear out some build settings so I get to show you guys that from scratch. So here inside of the new scene, I'm going to drop in a cube because that is probably the most important thing, is to have a floor that our character could stand on. 1 and 50. I'm going to drop in a light because why not? And shadows just because I can. So, now that I have this scene set up, it's nice and bright, I can see, I'm going to bring in the character controller. So I'm going to go to Sample Assets, I'm going to go to Characters, Third Person Character, and I'm going to go to Prefabs. Inside of here you'll find 2 controllers. We're going to grab the one that says Third Person Character.prefab. We're going to drag that into the scene. I'm just going to put it in front of the camera. And we're going to begin to network this guy. So if you have him selected, you'll notice that he has 2 scripts on him that are his main modes of movement. The first one is Third Person Character, and the second one is Third Person User Controller. I've already done the discovery for what we need to do in here, so we're going to go to the third person user controller. I'm going to open that up, and here it is. This is somebody else's code.